Hi, Luz. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. My name is Tieriana Marshall. I am a licensed clinical social worker, and we'll be here just to get to know a little bit more about you, um,
Okay.
and kind of what brings you here, what caused you to seek out um, some sort of, you know, therapy or guidance sessions. Um,
Okay.
During this, I will be taking notes just to, make sure that I stay up to date on what we're discussing, and so that I can, pinpoint some particular areas that were very like important to you.
Okay.
So if you have any questions about my notes, just let me know. And if you can start by telling me, a little bit more about yourself, what brings you in today? What are you hoping to get maybe out of this?
Sure. Um, well, I have always had kind of anxiety and depression. Um, it seems to get worse in times of like high stress. Um, and I've kind of gotten out of practice with using like my coping skills. So I'm hoping to get some help with like some kind of schedule or something to get on track with using them again. Um, since like COVID hit, I've been having like a lot of like my anxiety's gotten quite a bit worse. And I've been having like some occasional, they feel like panic attacks. That's what, when I've talked to my doctor about it, that's what they said they most likely are. Um, and so I'd like some help just sort of figuring out like how they happen and sort of to be aware of like before they happen, so they don't get to be so severe. I have had therapy before and I really enjoyed it. So I'm hoping coming back will be, um, I'll just be able to kind of get back in the swing of going to therapy and getting some self care in, I guess. Um, I have a 4-year degree. I'm a case manager at a nonprofit agency. Um, I have a 2-year old named Max, and I'm working full time. I have somewhat limited daycare, um, and I have a spouse at home. Um, yeah,
So
kind of.
you said you work for a nonprofit.
Hmm.
What do you do for that nonprofit?
I do. It's called the parent. It's called the parent visitation program. I help. It's called foster care supportive visitation. So I go out with foster parents and help them sort of navigate through and practice parenting with their kids while the kids are in out of home placement.
Okay.
Um, and I do like supportive skill building and whatnot with that. So I really enjoy it. I really like, I've always liked kids. So um,
What made
enjoy it.
you choose that? Like I know you said you like kids and all that, but what made you choose like this position?
Um, that's a good question. I have worked in child welfare since I graduated from college. So I've kind of gone into like different programs. I I think I just believe in family preservation as a, um, I guess, as a sphere of child welfare. Believe in families and keeping families together if possible. So that kind of guides why I chose this career, this position, I guess.
I know in the beginning you said that you have anxiety and depression. Were you diagnosed with that by your doctor or your previous therapist?
Um, mm, I was diagnosed by a doctor when I was in college.
Mhm.
Um, oh no, I'm sorry. I was diagnosed. sorry, I was diagnosed when I was in high school with anxiety and depression, um, by my doctor at the time, and
Oh,
then I started therapy shortly after that.
okay. So what kind of made you notice like your anxiety and depression developing? Were you um, like going through a difficult situation in high school, or was it just like the stresses of, preparing for the next steps after high school that kind of triggered these things and feelings?
Yeah. Well, my mom has pretty severe anxiety. Um, she's had it most of my life. Um, so I think I kind of noticed that there was um, some similarities between sort of like what she had struggled with, and what I was struggling with at the time.
Okay.
Um, and my mom had said, hey, maybe you need to go get um, some some insight as to what's going on with you, because I have anxiety and depression, and you very well may have it also. Um, so she kind of pushed that a little bit. I didn't really want to go get treat I guess get diagnosed with that, but I ended up going kind of because my dad and brother were insistent on me going, so I decided to go and get therapy.
Okay. So you said your dad and your brother were insistent. Is it like your older brother or?
Yeah, my older brother. My brother Raul is 10 years older than me.
Okay.
And he and I have always been really, really, really close. Um, and my dad is like everything to me. So um, when he had made mention that he thought it was a good idea that I go, I decided to go. But yeah, I guess I had some sort of um, resistance to go and get really. I guess at the time I had resistance to going because my mom um, was diagnosed with major depressive disorder and well, my mom had a very severe issue with alcohol when I was younger,
Okay.
and she was pretty awful when she was drunk and was kind of mean to me. Um, but she went to treatment and was diagnosed with major depressive disorder and generalized anxiety disorder. So that was um, that was sort of hard for me to kind of cope with because I know what being diagnosed with that did to her. So I was like, there's no way this is me too. But
Right.
I guess that's kind of how it started.
So, can you remember maybe how old you were when your mom was diagnosed with?
Um, I was I was in middle school.
So
So
that's a lot for a middle schooler to have to, you know, not
yeah, pretty
necessarily
bad.
deal with, but you have to grow up with that, with your mom having, technically um,
Yeah.
a substance abuse problem. And
Yeah.
then on top of that, she's dealing with mental health issues, which technically could like reinforce each other.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty
Um,
much.
so I know you had said that your dad is everything to you. Can you tell
Yeah.
me more about that?
Yeah. My I'm actually first generation Mexican American. Both of my parents immigrated here when my brother was my mom was pregnant with my brother. So the three of us were born here, but they had immigrated here. My dad is just like he's amazing. Um he always like worked a lot, but he really always invested his free time in us and like our interests. Even like my brother's like hobbies of like playing weird drums. Like my brother went through this like funky um like punk rock phase when I was really little. And my dad thought it was awesome. He's just really supportive and just like he gets really into whatever we're passionate or interested in. Um, so he came here. He didn't know any English, and he worked just like odd jobs, manufacturing jobs. And eventually he went through night school and he got his electrician's license, and opened up his own master electrician business. And he's just very inspirational, and like he's just always been very supportive of me and all my siblings and what we are interested in. He's very loving and kind, so he's a good guy.
Okay. It sounds like your dad, he does mean everything to you.
Yeah.
And I can definitely see that there's a great like relationship there. So is he supportive of you coming back into the
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. He even offered to because he's in the process of trying to retire, so he offered to sort of like provide childcare if I need it, so I can go back to therapy. So he's a good one. He I was really from a young age, I really wanted to go to college. Um, and he was always really supportive of that. Um, so that always meant a lot to me too. Um, but yeah, he's really supportive. He was, yeah, even when I was in college and I had to go, I was having trouble with like my anxiety and depression started flaring again when I was in college.
Mhm.
Um, he was sort of like brought it to my attention that it was coming, that I was that he was worried about me and how my depression was affecting me, and he encouraged me to go back into college too, which really I think saved me being able to graduate. Um, so yeah, he's a good one.
Your dad's like a superhero.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he's a great guy.
Um, so I know you said you initially mentioned childcare in the beginning. You said you kind of have a lack of, you know,
Yeah.
childcare. Is that lack of childcare with you going to work, or like, um, does your spouse work the same type of shift as you, so you guys can't like alternate care, or what's behind that, if I may
Y-
ask?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so we have sort of like everybody other than my dad and my husband's mom kind of work like a 9 to 5. So everybody, I mean, like other than the occasional like here and there, childcare, we we struggle with alternating shifts. My husband and I work pretty much the same shift. Um, so with working remote, it's kind of like we're both juggling working with kind of we're like everything with COVID, right? We're all sort of half working, half watching our kids. It's not a
Right.
good thing, but it's kind of how, things are right now, especially, trying to finish my master's degree. It's kind of how things are right now. So, but he does go to daycare 3 days a week, nine
Okay.
to five. So I have some time in there to kind of like do work or do visits and study for school. So
Okay. So you are back in school now. You're hoping to get your master's.
yeah,
What are you getting your master's in?
social work.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So, can you tell me a little bit more about how, COVID has increased your anxiety? Is it the like restrictions that have been placed by, local governments, to try to protect us from the disease? Or is it just being cooped up in the house and you're not used to that, that's causing, your anxiety and depression to like exacerbate itself?
I think it's the latter. As far as, yeah, I think that it's being cooped up in the house. Um, I've noticed um with depression, as far as my symptoms go, it seems like I can kind of identify sort of when I'm starting to get depressed because I stop returning people's text messages or phone calls. That's usually when it's starting.
Okay.
Um, but I think that I've been feeling like that's been more common lately, that I've been kind of avoiding talking to people just because, yeah, being cooped up in the house all the time, not really knowing when there's an end in sight, I think is really exhausting too.
Yeah.
Not knowing like when we can visit, when, when we can sort of have some normalcy. Um, that's been really tough, I
So
think.
with your job, are you in person sometimes and mobile, or are you strictly mobile?
So what we do is we do virtual like sessions with parents, and then I'll do a visit with them usually once or twice a week in the community with their child, like watching them do the actual interacting with their child out and about. And then we'll do the once a week virtual visit is like I'll just call them and kind of tell them like, hey, this went really well. This is like an area that we should improve on.
Okay.
Um, Kind of things like that, I think.
So do you think with you being able to get out the house just a little bit for those types of sessions, do you think that helps with your feelings of being cooped up in the house and how your depression has been displaying itself? Do you think like it kind of lowers itself and then when you get back into the house and you're back in that situation, it rises again?
Absolutely. Yep. That's exactly what it is. Yeah. When I get out in the house, I don't even think about feeling depressed or feeling sad or feeling overwhelmed. Like I'm just focused on, what's going on. And yeah, that's exactly it.
Okay. I definitely understand where you're coming from. That is a lot, You're only
Yeah.
we're so used to being gone a lot, before COVID, work life was 9 to 5, not in the
Hmm.
house. Um,
Hmm.
we didn't have to worry about being at home so much. And now that we're constantly at home, it's like, I just let me out. Like we're in
Yeah.
a jail,
Right.
let me out. Um,
Yeah.
so have you talked with your husband about your feelings of anxiety and depression?
Yeah. He does a really great job, I think, of like uh, of asking me when I need help and if I need help,
Okay.
and taking some of the load off. Um, he does a really great job of that. Um, I think that, yeah, it becomes sort of like, it's hard to describe, but um, he can notice when I'm like depressed or like anxious, um, because sometimes I feel like I keep my anxiety like inside.
Okay.
That makes sense because I don't want to burden other people with how I'm feeling.
Mhm.
But he does a pretty good job trying to be like, hey, it's okay, let me try to take care of this for you so you're not feeling super stressed out. Does that
So
make sense?
I definitely think I get where you're coming from, as in not wanting to kind of put your feelings off on others. Um, and I know you use the word burden, which is a pretty heavy word. What makes you feel like you're a burden or your emotions would be a burden to your family or your husband?
Hmm. Um, that's a great question. That's a really deep question. Um, I think my um I think some of it stems back to feeling like when my mom was in her I guess episodes with alcohol, if I needed something or if I told her I needed something, she would lash out or she would tell me that it wasn't important. Um, so I stopped asking, really. Um, and I think yeah, I feel like I, yeah, I think that it's kind of probably a little bit from that, probably a lot of it from that.
So, was your, where was your dad in this time with your mom and her um, alcohol consumption and her depression, anxiety? They were still together.
Yeah. So they're still married.
Okay.
Um, he he worked like
Okay.
all the he was the only one working.
So she was a stay-at-home mom.
He stayed at home, yeah.
Okay.
Um, but my older brother Raul was he's 10 years older than I am. So when she was really in the fits of her drinking, he was like 20,
Okay.
21, still living at home. So he kind of took over like one of the caregiver roles
Okay.
for me anyway.
Okay.
Um, like he would go to like instead of my mom going to like a class, I don't know, recital or whatever, he would go.
Okay.
And when I did cheerleading for whatever that like year and a half, he would like go with all the cheer moms to like do stuff.
He was a
Um,
cheer brother.
he was a cheer brother, yeah. Um, so he was just always really like the one who filled that role for me. Um, so I feel like while my mom and I are, I mean, we're better now. I think that she's a really great grandma to my son. Um, but our relationship just was really bad, and I don't know, even though she was in treatment and got help and she we just never really got better than, I don't know, it just never really recovered, um really.
Okay.
It makes sense.
So, is it because due to her when she was having her episodes with drinking, you kind of shut down and stopped going to her for the things that you need? Do you find yourself still not going to her when it comes to like your emotions? Like if like talking about this right now, you would find yourself like not wanting to go to her about that because you feel like you may be dismissed. Would that be
Yeah, exactly. Dismissed like, oh, you're just she has this mentality that like people who grew up, like first generation people who grew up in America,
Mhm.
um, have like nothing to complain about ever. Like that's her thing,
Okay.
is like you don't know what it was like to live, which is valid, like living in Mexico, especially in the region that they were from. was really dangerous. And um, I think they had a lot of trauma from when they lived there and when they came over here. Um, that was a very traumatic event for them both, I think.
Okay.
Um, so she's very dismissive of like me for some reason. Like she she for some reason like all of like I have a younger sister who was never really aware like of um how badly she was abusing alcohol, and Raul was much older, and for some reason my mom just treated him like she I think because she relied emotionally and physically very much on him that he was um he's like her golden child,
Okay.
and he can do no wrong. So any of the verbal or emotional abuse that was being dealt out was being dealt out. For the most part, it felt like it was targeted towards me.
So your brother was the golden child.
Yes.
What
Still
would you, still is? What would you
so
say your sister was then? Was she just kind of like the forgotten one? Like she wasn't forgotten, but she was just kind of she's the youngest one, so they're not
yeah,
really worried about her.
yeah, it kind of yeah, pretty much. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I know that being like the first daughter born here, um they were always my mom was very adamant about me, like I had always expressed to her that I, wanted to go to college and um, wanted to have a like a career, and she was very adamant that, you know, Mexican women don't do that. They stay home and care for, the spouse and raise the children. And I always wanted something slightly different than that, and she was always very just not supportive of that.
So she wanted you to maintain those cultural roles that she was raised on.
Exactly. Yep.
Um,
Hmm. Yep.
so your parents came to America for a better life to make a better situation for their family and ultimately you because they were here for quite some time, about 10 years before you were born, correct?
Hmm. Yep.
So have you ever talked to your mom about that? Like, were you like strong in saying like, well, this is what I want, like I want to be able to go to school? And I know you did say that she wanted you to maintain those cultural roles, but did she later kind of warm up to the idea of you going to school and becoming a career woman, or is she still on the fence about that?
Every now and then she'll make a comment that like, if you, if you stayed home, like what for whatever Max does, like if he, I don't know, like if he's, I'm trying to think, like if he watches like an hour of Sesame Street, she's like, well, if you, you know, didn't have a job or did, if you stayed home with him, you wouldn't have to worry about him watching TV or, she'll make like little comments, but
Mhm.
um, she did kind of say like, it's not that we haven't like tried to like get past like what happened, but I, she had always made it seem like, or she had told me, I think recently, she finally told me that she's like, I was happy that you wanted to go to college, but I felt like she made it sound like she wanted me to stay home so that we could try to work on a relationship, which I felt that made me kind of angry because I was like, you had all this time to try to make up for like what happened, and now you're trying to stand in the way because you're saying you didn't have enough time.
So do you feel like she was being very selfish?
Yeah, I
And
do.
Do you think that how she is now, like when she kind of does her little remarks of when Max is doing something, or um kind of like reverting back to, well, if you would have been at home, this wouldn't have happened. Do you think
Hmm.
that adds to your anxiety surrounding everything, or your depression? Um,
Well, I never thought about that, but yeah, it probably does.
because that has to take a toll on you, you would think, right? Like you're
Yeah,
constantly hearing this as if what you're doing isn't enough. And if you would have been at home, that would have been the best way to handle a situation.
yeah, that yeah, that makes a lot of sense, honestly. It makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but probably, yeah. Yeah.
Because have you and your mom ever tried to sit down, like with a therapist maybe, and work out your all's underlying issues, in a space where there's somebody who can maybe be a mediator that could potentially help with addressing your feelings too? Because like going back to feeling like you're a burden, like that's big when you feel like you've been dismissed your entire life, and then you're still now trying to make sure you're not adding that extra stress onto somebody else, because of how you were when you were younger, like how you were treated when you were younger.
Mhm.
Like addressing that with your mom, with somebody else in the room, do you think that that would kind of give some type of benefit or insight to your feelings and your emotions as a whole?
I would love that. I really would. I think that that would be really, really, really helpful. Um, I know she's not against it, against meeting with someone. I think she would probably be pretty uncomfortable, but um, I do think I do think she would meet with somebody else. I think that that would actually probably be really great.
Does she like to keep things, sorry to get off into your mom's, like on your mom's tangent,
Oh,
but
that's okay.
do you think that she likes to keep things in house, like we can
Absolutely, yeah.
deal with this in house,
Hmm. Yeah.
and you find yourself potentially dealing with things in house?
Oh, wow. I didn't even see that parallel. Wow. Yeah, probably. I mean, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I think that I think that's why it took so long for her to, because I'm sure she's known her whole life that she's had anxiety, but she used obviously alcohol to medicate.
Mhm.
Um, but I think that's why it took so long for her to go to treatment, was because she kept thinking that she could deal with it, on her own, and she didn't want to go. I do remember that being a huge deal when she went to treatment, because it was like a really big thing.
Like she
Um,
just didn't want to do it, or she wasn't very receptive of somebody else like
exactly.
knowing her
Yeah,
her
she didn't want anybody else to know. It was like a secret.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mental health is like very hard to deal with because there's so much stigma,
Yeah.
behind it. Even though like we all we all suffer through some
Yeah.
sort of,
Right.
right.
Yeah.
Um, so I definitely understand. When you said that you went to therapy before, what did you get out of that? Like what made you stop first? Did you just like complete all your sessions, or you felt like you were getting better and you no longer needed to go?
Um, I went to therapy, like I said, in high school, just because my anxiety was sort of just, I had a lot of like social anxiety at the time. Like I was just kind of nervous to be in like groups of people, and I was really, really, really painfully shy. Um, and I had like a lot of test anxiety, and just um, like stuff like that, and some depression too. Um, but I went to therapy, and I think I got a lot out of like sort of cultivating like coping skills. Like I used to be really good about doing like journaling. Um, I used to really like creative writing stuff. Um, and I would really be able to sort of like capture like how I was feeling and sort of like release it with like in like a creative way, I guess.
Okay.
Um, and deep breathing and stuff was helpful too. So that was, I think I was really good at managing and really putting into effect like things that helped. Um, and I think it just got to a point where I kind of like got what I needed out of it at the time, where I was anxiety wise, anyways.
Okay.
And I didn't really need to go all the time. So I would just go like once in a while, and then I moved away to school and I stopped going. And that was pretty much it.
Okay. So I know initially, when we first started talking, you said you're out of touch with the coping skills. So you're out of touch with your journaling and your creative writing to help
Yeah.
release your emotions. Do you think that those are the same ones that you would use now? Or with you being grown and an adult and
Mhm.
with a mom, um, do you think that you may have different coping skills that would better suit you?
Probably, yeah. I think I don't spend enough time. I know it's cheesy to say that we need to, spend time like making sure our cup is full before we can pour into others or however that goes.
Yeah.
Um, but I know I don't spend enough time doing that,
Okay.
and it does come. I'm sure it contributes to the anxiety and the depression stuff. So I would like to explore that, truthfully, and even coming up with like a designated like coming up with a schedule for when I should do it, or you know at like even if it's someone to hold me accountable, like at 8:30 every night I'm doing something for 15 minutes or something.
Right. Um, so how would you say, like, with your son, does being with your son, interacting with your son bring you some sort of joy? Like, does that help ease your
Yeah.
anxiety? Or like
Yeah.
taking time out, at the end of the night, getting him ready for bed?
Yes, I didn't even think of that, but yeah, I love doing. He is one thing that just um like totally takes my anxiety away, like just sitting with him or reading with him. And we do like bath time and story time before bed. And yeah, so it totally just yeah, he totally makes my anxiety symptoms way less bad, I think.
Because definitely being a parent gives you a different type of, feeling. And coping skills don't always have to be like a individual type of thing, but you also don't have to worry about putting all of your stress and emotions onto him, because he's enjoying you reading to him and he's enjoying you getting him ready for bed, while he doesn't know that this is doing something very positive for you. It
Hmm.
mommy's being mommy.
Yeah, sure.
So it's kind of like you're killing two birds with one stone, for lack of a better phrase.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a
'Cause
creative way to put it.
yeah, you could definitely look at that and explore that too, as well as thinking about like where you are now in life and you know, um, how coping skills will look for you now as being older than in high school. Because I know in high school you probably had a lot more free time to
Yep.
journal and create and be creative
Right.
in writing. Um, so like what are some of like your hobbies or interests that also help take your mind off of your anxiety and depression?
Oh, I like to read. I like listening to like audiobooks and stuff. Um, I like to walk, you know, Max and I'll, or my husband, if he's not working, will take the our dogs for a walk. So that's always enjoyable. Um, I'm trying to think of what else. I do like to listen to music. I podcasts, like stuff like that. I enjoy those kinds of things.
What's a good podcast that you get into? Like mystery podcasts, podcasts.
I know what you meant. God, podcasts. Um, there's one called My Favorite Murder that's pretty good. There's also a Harry Potter one that's really good. I can't remember the name of it, but it goes into like privilege and oppression with Harry Potter. That one's pretty good. Um, but yeah, those are the ones that I've been into kind of lately. Uh,
Okay. Okay.
yeah.
Um, so right now in who you see yourself as, can you like describe to me who you are in your own eyes?
Oh. Um, I think I'm smart. Um, I'm loving. Um, I'm a pretty strong person. I'm persistent. Um, I try really hard. Trying to think of what else. I guess those are the big ones. I can't think of anything else off the top of my head.
That's fine. You said that you're strong. What is your definition of strong? In what aspects are you strong?
Um, I think I have like the determination to get through something, even if I don't know if I can do it. Like when I'm in the middle of it, that makes sense.
Hmm.
I'm like, I don't know if I can do this, but I'm gonna keep going until maybe it works.
You're right.
So I like, yeah, I think I see that as strength.
Okay.
Um, just continuing to try even if you're not sure how it's gonna end up.
So perseverance
Yeah.
adds into your feelings of
Mm,
being strong.
yeah.
And what have been outside of COVID and the anxiety that comes with COVID,
Mhm.
has work added extra stress into your life that wasn't previously there? Or has work been an outlet in a sense for your stress?
I think work is more of an outlet um than a stressor, even though I think, seeing folks with their kids and being a parent is adds a new element now that I'm a parent, with watching, folks who maybe struggle with even playing with their kids,
Okay.
uh, and can only see them once a week. That can be kind of triggering, I think. Um, and it certainly makes me come home and kind of like spoil Max a little bit um, if I've had a hard day. But in all, I think I believe in the work that I do, and it adds more than it takes away from me.
Okay. So you don't,
Uh,
you wouldn't say that you bring home like baggage or anything from work. It's kind of more helping you to promote your passion for family preservation than
yeah,
it
I
is
think that.
causing issue for you in your own home life.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's right.
And then with your husband, and I know he knows that you're dealing with your anxiety and depression, and you're trying to address that.
Mhm.
Um, have you thought of like maybe doing something with your husband, do activities, maybe just with you and him, help you de-stress and kind of lower your anxiety to give you something else to think about versus everything that's on your plate at this point in time.
Yeah. We used to, you mean as far as like going, like
A
spending time
date
together?
night, or
Yeah.
if your dad would watch Max one night and you guys either just like stay at home, with COVID going on, we can't really go everywhere, but
Right.
maybe stay at home, watch a movie, just some adult time without
Yeah.
being a mom at that moment.
Hmm. Yeah, I would love to do that more. I don't know that we ask for that as much as we probably should, but I know that um my dad is like, "Are you sure you guys don't want to, I don't mind um helping out if you guys want to go, even go get some takeout and sit in the car and eat it." Um but yeah, that's something I probably should ask for more. But yeah, even my mom will offer to babysit for us because she loves Max. Absolutely loves his grandma.
So her
Absolutely,
relationship with your son is completely different than how her
it's
relationship with you.
completely different. Completely different, which I think adds some kind of weird tone to like my relationship with her because I'm like, not that I don't trust it because I know she loves him very much. Um, it's almost like she overdoes it with him,
Do you
kind
think
of.
to, overcompensate for like I messed up with my daughter, so maybe I can make it right with my grandson?
I see a lot of that. Yeah, I see a
Okay.
lot.
But then
Hmm.
also, do you see it as like with the boys, she's able to be more affectionate than
Yeah,
with her
I
daughter?
see that. Yeah, yeah. And he does look a lot like the baby pictures of my older brother. He looks
Okay.
a lot like him. Um, but yeah, I could see that too. Like she favors the men, um, the boys and in our family, definitely. For some reason.
Which can also be maybe she's holding on to what she was raised on.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think that that may have a lot to do with what's going on too, is the cultural aspects of everything. Because now you're a first generation American and you're Mexican American, and you're experiencing the American side of life as well as the Mexican side of life and what is supposed to occur with that. And
Hmm.
it's kind of like she doesn't have the opportunity to fully assess that either.
Hmm.
So it's just a lot for her, which then trickled down to being tough on you, lax on your brother, and kind of like, your sister's here.
Yeah, pretty much. Like my sister is in her like she's in her last year at Wayne State. She's doing her doctoral program, and my mom is like super supportive of it and just loves like is totally different than when I went to school, which is just very, but I think again, some of it could be like I messed up with Moose, so you know, um, I want to make sure I get this right, but it's a lot to think about.
Yeah.
You've given me a lot to think about.
Well, sometimes our family history adds into our current emotions and our current feelings.
Yeah.
Um, and it can be a lot.
It can, yeah.
Sorry about that. So do you have any kind of questions for me as far as like how things are gonna go? Because I know we'll meet again and we'll kind of dive a little deeper into some of the things that you've talked to me about tonight, just to see if we can flesh out more of your feelings and your thoughts around your depression and anxiety.
I don't think so. I feel pretty good about how we started here, so I'm looking forward to it.
Okay. Well, I shall let you go for tonight, and I just want to say thank you for, coming and giving me the opportunity and being open and transparent with me during this session.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Okay.